Good morning, it's Ray. It's Saturday, and it's a Saturday of a 3-day weekend for me. It's a bank holiday weekend here. I'm going to be spending my weekend reading, and I'm going to be reading The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. I actually started this probably like a year ago, and I've read about a third of it already. But I just didn't get into it at all when I was reading it before. I just wasn't in the mood for it, but I do think that it's the kind of book that I will really enjoy, and I feel like I'm finally in a place where I'm ready for it. It is the story of the Joad family and their journey as refugees across America in the Great Depression. So my plan for today is actually just to kind of reread up to where I am already, or at least to go through it and read some chapter summaries and just get myself like fully back up to speed with where I am with it, because obviously it's been like many months since I was actually reading the story. Before I get started, however, I am going to tidy the house because I don't know if anybody else does this when you're at work and it's just too much, but like, you see that? It's bad. It's bad. So I think we can all agree that this situation is quite relatable and stress-inducing. I'm gonna sort it out and then I'm gonna get on with my reading. Okay, I mean, it's not like the nicest spot in the world, but it's a vast improvement. And this is very satisfying. I've actually also had a great idea for hiding this mess. This looks a lot better. Books do furnish a room, as they say. So I've got myself back up to speed with where I was at with The Grapes of Wrath. I was just reading through the chapter summaries on SparkNotes. I actually really highly recommend it as a resource, even if you're not studying. It's like aimed at people studying for kind of GCSEs, A-levels, like 16, 17, 18-year-olds, but I find it a really useful way to get to grips with a plot if I'm unsure of a plot, and get context on a book, and to get like a bit of a pointer in the direction of what the themes are going to be. I don't normally use it during a novel unless I get a bit lost, but what I do use it for often is if I've listened to a classic novel as an audiobook, or if I've read a classic novel in a version that didn't have an introduction. It kind of is just like a free way of getting what an introduction to a novel gives you, that more academic side of things, and because it's aimed at like late teenagers, it does a really nice job of going into the academic side of things, but it's not like reading a literary journal article, which will be incredibly niche and specific. It's a lot more general. I did find out a little bit more about the context of The Grapes of Wrath, which was really interesting to me, because as a British reader, I just don't have like a huge baseline of knowledge about American history. I have some random bits, but nothing very thorough, and so I didn't know that much about the context of this book apart from what I'd kind of gathered from the blurb and from the story. So if you're interested, in the early 1930s, large areas of farming land in America, particularly in Oklahoma and surrounding states, experienced this awful drought that went on for a few years, and combined with the fact that post-World War I, this land had been extremely over-farmed, this led to a situation where the topsoil just completely dried out and was like blowing around in clouds, and hence the area became known as the Dust Bowl. This was also combined with the increasing industrialization of farming. Most of the farmers were tenant farmers. They were kind of renting the farmland that they farmed, and they of course didn't have money to buy the big tractors and things which they were now competing with in order to farm successfully. And so these two things came together to mean that thousands and thousands of people just lost their farming land. They couldn't possibly afford to keep it on. Also, like, all of their crops had failed for numerous years and they were destitute effectively. Everybody migrated to California because it was known that there were migrant jobs available in California doing things like fruit picking. However, as you can imagine, the area of California and the fruit picking jobs were not vast enough to accommodate all of the people who were turning up. And so after this migration journey to get to California, lots of people got there and there wasn't the dream awaiting them that they believed was going to be awaiting them. Lots of people ended up living in effectively refugee camps, I believe, which were called Hoovervilles, based on the fact that President Hoover was blamed for the Great Depression. And people in these camps lived in appalling conditions. Some of them starved to death. They were unable to find work, they were unable to get money, and there wasn't really any kind of safety net for them to fall back into. So that is the historical context in which The Grapes of Wrath is written, and is written about a family, they're called the Joad family, and their journey from Oklahoma to California and what happens to them before, during, and on this journey. The Joad family are more representative of the masses than they are like specific, really deeply fleshed out individuals. So what Steinbeck does in the writing, he alternates between chapters which are like lyrical vignettes looking at the state of the nation, obviously specifically focused on this one issue, and then chapters that are the Joad family and their journey. The Joad family kind of illustrate the broader issues that Steinbeck is exploring in the vignette chapters. So yeah, I'm actually so much more excited to read this, having spent a little bit of time just like remembering where I am, but also learning a little bit more about the context and a little bit more about what Steinbeck was trying to achieve with this novel. I really get so much joy out of that slightly deeper level of reading books. It's why I love classics so very much. For me, like the literary analysis side of reading just kind of changes the experience of reading from being like a 2D experience to a 3D experience, if that makes sense. I don't know. Anyway, I'm really excited for it. Hey, it's Sunday. Haven't given an update for today yet, just spent this morning reading, and I am going to some friend's house for lunch. It is so hot and sunny. I will catch up with you properly inside later on. Sunday night, as you can probably tell by the not ideal lighting. The fact that my candle looks so much brighter than it normally does when I film here. I've had a really lovely day. I actually have not done that much reading because I ended up spending most of my day around at my friend's house. Just had like a 3-course meal outside and played a board game and chatted, and it was really lovely. And then I talked to my friend in the UK for about an hour, and yeah, it's been a really lovely, chill, sociable day, which was very much needed and which I have loved. I'm about halfway through Grapes of Wrath. I'm really enjoying it. The writing is just gorgeous. The plot has started to get so much more interesting for me now that they're on the move. A few sort of themes that are coming up that I don't think I've mentioned yet, kind of slightly connected themes, the theme of family and the theme of like roles within the family. So in terms of family, there has from the beginning been this comparison between families being separated and families staying together, and there's this kind of contrast between our souls belonging to our sense of place and our souls belonging to the family. So like you have some people who have chosen to remain in Oklahoma because that land feels like home to them, and in spite of the fact that the land is now worthless, that they don't even own anything there, that they can't grow crops there, they'd rather stay and scavenge than leave. On the other hand, you have families who are leaving together and who feel like so long as they stay together as a family unit, then everything will be okay, whatever hardships they face. So that's quite a beautiful theme that's being explored. And like I said, tied to that is this idea of the world being turned upside down, and with the world being turned upside down, traditional roles within the family changing, and the matriarch of the family gaining more importance and more say, and the traditional jobs that men and women do being split up and differentiated in different ways because the standard way of life that everybody's used to just doesn't exist anymore. One other theme that I'm really enjoying and just finding incredibly beautiful, and that I can tell is what's going to make The Grapes of Wrath such a gorgeous, powerful classic, is the fact that we kind of have this juxtaposition of awfulness and heroic beauty. I think pretty much all of the most moving stories are the stories that manage to show how human decency thrives and survives even in horrific situations. The majority of what is happening to the Joad family is simply awful. It is the definition of unjust. We see how the downtrodden in society are only trodden further down because of their lack of wealth, rather than given the dignity and the support that they need. But along the route, we also meet some other characters and some sort of chance encounters where people act with real kindness and intense humanity, and it's just beautiful to see. It's beautifully written, and I love that in literature. That's my mini update on where I'm at, and I'll hopefully update you when I get to the end of the book tomorrow. Monday afternoon, and so far today I have been reading The Grapes of Wrath, making my way through it, and making and eating pancakes. Tom is away this weekend, and I know that I ought to cook like a proper meal, but there's something about living alone and eating pancakes that just makes you feel like a young witch making her own way in the world, and that is the kind of mood that I am in this bank holiday weekend. Moving on to The Grapes of Wrath, I feel like probably at about the halfway point, I just suddenly got to that point with it where like, it's brilliant. I know that one of the things that is said about Grapes of Wrath is that the characterization is not that psychologically deep, but I kind of feel like the characterization is absolutely enough and more than enough for the novel to do what it is doing. Like, what I feel about the characters is that I see in them the core essence of being a human being, and that's what makes this novel so heartbreaking. Like, in the family that's represented in this novel, I recognise my own family, and I think about how much the situations that they are facing would completely destroy and burn out members of my own family, and that just is absolutely heartbreaking to think of, and I think it's something that Steinbeck's writing does really effectively. So the characters are just in this total catch-22. Like, they're economic migrants, but they're not wanted in California because they can't get work. They're searching for work, they desperately want to work, but they can't work, therefore they can't afford to buy stuff. And there's just this like ongoing spiral between the migrants and the residents of California, this kind of increasing cycle of hatred that can't be broken because of the economic system that's failing everybody. It's an utterly heartbreaking situation. It's even more heartbreaking the fact that you can see within this the lived experience of so many economic migrants in modern society. Like, right now, all over the world, people are living in the same way that the characters are living in this book. At the moment, the family are in this kind of temporary safe space, and I hate so much the fact that I know that there's too many pages left for this happiness and security to continue for very much longer. But while they're in this brief respite time of happiness and security, Mum says, they made us feel like people again. Steinbeck just seems to shoot right to the heart of what it means to be a human being, regardless of your economic circumstances. So yeah, I did have a few other plans for things that I was going to do today, but I'm actually like, all I want to do is read Grapes of Wrath, so I'm just going to sit and read Grapes of Wrath for the rest of the day. I don't know if I'll finish today. I think I was quite slow on Saturday and Sunday. Like, I did read a bit, but I didn't read as much as I probably should have done in order to get to the end of the novel in 3 days. I'm really, really enjoying that feeling of being with a book. I've done so much audiobook listening lately, which has been great. Like, it's an amazing way to consume books. But I do really love the experience of being with the pages, turning the pages, just like getting absorbed within the text of the book. I'm loving it. I'm loving the story. So that's how I'm going to spend the rest of my day. Hey, it's Sunday night and I finished. I actually didn't think I was going to finish. I had about 300 pages to read today. It's like, it took me like 7 months to read the first half of this book and a day to read the second half of it. Like, in the beginning, I just wasn't really connected to the characters at all, and by the end, I just had so many emotions. The ending of this book is incredible. I had to reread the last 3 pages of this book about 3 times to like fully comprehend what was going on and how the book was ending. It was amazing, just like totally heart-wrenching, completely beautiful, compelling, wonderful, a lot of really interesting religious imagery. I wish honestly that I could sum up the way that this book felt in a succinct and beautiful way myself, but I actually think the blurb does it best. It says, "This story is one of false hopes, thwarted desires and broken dreams, yet out of their suffering Steinbeck created a drama that is intensely human, yet majestic in its scale and moral vision, an eloquent tribute to the endurance and dignity of the human spirit." So that's it. That's The Grapes of Wrath. Finally finished it, absolutely loved it. It is the end of my bank holiday weekend. I've really enjoyed reading so much. I'm so glad that I decided to do this. I feel like it's got me out of a kind of reading slump I was in. I feel like I've refound my rhythm for reading, having done just like a focused long stint. I would recommend that if you're in a reading slump, to kind of set yourself a timer or some sort of a deadline limit for reading a book, because now I just feel like I crave reading. Like that's just what I want to do. I just want to immediately pick up another book and like be with a text with my eyes again. It was so satisfying. It's about 8 o'clock now. I'm just gonna sort myself out some lunch for tomorrow, get ready for the working week. I enjoyed my weekend. Thanks for coming along with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts on Grapes of Wrath if you've read it. I know that a few of you have and have like been encouraging me to get on and finish it, so thank you if you're one of those people. I really loved it. Please do like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notifications when I post a video. Really appreciate you watching. Look forward to chatting with you in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video.